I want to take a look at the latest homelessness data from the Department of Housing and Urban Development with you. There's both good and bad news in the new numbers. So first of all, they say, quote, homelessness fell by more than 2% at the beginning of this year compared to last year, or 13,344 fewer people. So the drop is partly due to the government launching a new campaign in 2010 to address homelessness. Quote, homelessness among veterans fell by 11% over the last year and has fallen 33% since 2010. So everything you just heard right there, that's the good news. The good news is the overall drop. Again, 3,344 fewer people are homeless right now than the beginning of last year. Overall, though, I think it's fair to say that the numbers are still bleak. There are 49,993 homeless veterans in the country, 45,205 homeless children under the age of 18 and all by themselves in this country. Isn't that a ridiculous number? 45,205 homeless kids under the age of 18. That's insanity. And in total, I hope you're sitting down for this one, 578,424 homeless people are in America. 578,000. One of the main things that I took away from this story is I was kind of embarrassed and a little ashamed that I couldn't tell you that number or the rough number of people in America that are homeless before I read the story. And I'm somebody who follows all this stuff pretty closely for a living, and I couldn't tell you before the story the exact number of people in America or close to it that are homeless. So what that tells me is the mainstream media is not doing its job. They're not doing anywhere near what their job is supposed to be. I mean, in a country where the media was functioning and we actually had people who were watchdogs of power and they gave a shit about the American people, everybody would have that number memorized. We would all know that number. We'd all be able to repeat it, and we would look at it as a national embarrassment. Anytime any politician ever brings up some sort of foreign military operation that we just have to do ASAP, our response should be, maybe, but first we need to make sure the 578,424 homeless people are taken care of. First we need to turn the fucking water back on in Detroit and stop acting like a third world nation is in the middle of the United States. So this is what our response should be, and we should know these numbers offhand, but we don't because the media has failed us so thoroughly. So they go on to explain, quote, the country could wipe out homelessness among all populations now if it chose to. Mass homelessness first emerged in the 1980s alongside the evaporation of affordable housing. In 1970, get this, there was a surplus of 300,000 affordable units. But by 2009, there was a 5.5 million shortage. Whoa. That really is just a earth-shattering fact. Again, in 1970, we had 300,000 extra affordable housing units. Today, we're short 5.5 million. It costs Florida $31,065 a year per chronic homeless person in medical and incarceration costs. But if we gave them a roof over their head, it would cost only $10,051 to give that person housing. So again, what we've learned from multiple studies that have been done recently even, we learn that you save money, the government saves money, the taxpayers save money if we focused on housing first. When we kick people out in the streets and we accept that they're homeless, then we end up spending more money for jails and prisons and hospital visits, etc., etc. So after taking in all this information and sitting on it for a while and thinking about it, this is one of those issues where I've concluded I think it makes sense to do a constitutional amendment which gives people a right to a roof over their head. And understand, I'm not the kind of person who's inflexible and rigid on an issue like this, where it's not like I'm arguing give everybody a mansion or give everybody a 2,000 square foot condo or townhouse. No. What I'm talking about is very simple. I'm talking about a right to a roof over your head, whether that's in a homeless shelter, which gives it to you, or in a Housing First program, which, like I've said repeatedly, I'm in favor of a bare bones program in that respect. So you have a right to a roof over your head, but you're not going to get you're not getting a swimming pool, you're not getting a tennis court, you're not getting a gym. If you're, if you don't have a job, you're not holding down a job, and you're homeless and you have problems, I want the government to help you. I want it to be there to help you, but I don't want to cross that line into incentivizing people to not have a job and not be productive and all this other stuff. So like I've said from the beginning, I'll give you a one-bedroom apartment, totally bare bones, unfurnished. You get your bare necessities, and that's it. The rest is on you. But again, you should at least have that roof over your head. And to be clear, that's what most of these Housing First programs, that's exactly what they are. They just say, look, to save money and be somewhat moral and decent human beings, we're going to give you a roof over your head, one-bedroom apartment, and that's it, and then you're on your own. And what ends up happening? It has a tremendously high success rate. People end up getting their shit together, getting a job, finding out a way to, get back into society and start being productive and all these things. So I do believe now that that's a constitutional right, because I don't think there's any real argument against putting a roof over everybody's head. Anybody who would say, well, we just can't do it, it's not reasonable, it's not feasible, that's total bullshit. Total bullshit. I mean, how much money does the federal government spend every single year? 57% of our discretionary budget goes to the military. Really? Even if we cut back 6% on that, I bet you we could fund a national program to put a roof over everybody's head and succeed off just that. So don't tell me we can't do it. We can cut back some of our 900 military bases. We can cut back some of that 57% discretionary spending for the military. We can cut back on corporate welfare. There's so many things we can cut back on and reallocate the funding to something like a roof over your head, and that would be the smart thing to do, and that would be the humane thing to do.